So what the heck is strategy? If you ask different people, you're going to get a bunch of different answers. And the truth is that most people don't have a good sense for what strategic thinking or what strategy really means. So in this video, I'll give you one slide with strategic thinking compressed into a framework called Occam, and that's going to give you this mental, holistic image of what strategy is all about so that you can finally get it. Hey, how's it going? I'm Adam. This is Strategy Kiln, where we simplify and demystify business challenges. I'm always giving out free stuff over at strategykiln.com. So if you want to check it out, you'll get some free slides, frameworks, things like that. So why is strategy so difficult? Well, most of the seminal works out there, Porter's Competitive Strategy, written way back in 1979, right? The Dark Ages. It positions strategy at this really kind of high up, lofty level that it's difficult to relate to. It's directed towards CEOs and people in charge of billion-dollar budget. It feels difficult to understand how to relate it to your day-to-day. So the topic now is strategic thinking, and my goal is to make this simple and memorable for you, whether you're a marketing coordinator, you're in finance, you're a senior marketing manager like myself, whoever you are, so that you'll finally get a sense of how strategy fits in to your world from a thinking and mindset perspective. So let's start with some definitions of strategy. We'll get grounded there, and then we'll move on to some new ways of looking at strategy. Okay, so these are the preeminent definitions by Michale Porter, like Boston Consulting Group, right? So why don't these definitions work? Let's take a look. So I'm going to read some of these verbatim. The essence of strategy is choosing to perform activities different than rivals do. Strategy is the creation of a unique and valuable position involving a different set of activities. Strategy is making trade-offs and competing. So is anything clear after reading these? Not so much. There's a lot in here to like. Trade-offs, that's a great word, really important. Activities, performing activities differently than rivals do. Strategy is the creation of a unique and valuable position. Okay, so there's a lot here that we can take, but it still feels abstract, right? Boston Consulting Group. The goal of strategy is the pursuit of sustainable competitive advantage. And then random Google search, thank you Sun Tzu, a plan for military operations and movements during a war or battle. That's probably the most helpful one. Let's take a look at another definition here that kind of breaks away from conventional thinking, right? So McKinsey, I think that they sum it up well. They say that strategy is a way of thinking, not a procedural exercise or a set of frameworks. McKinsey is explaining that we can't just memorize a Boston Consulting Group growth share matrix or some other slide that I might try to give you. It's not about that. It's about using your mental faculties and a creative and analytical process of thought that'll help you figure out what you're looking at, what's out there, and what needs to be done. Okay, let's continue. So now what I'm going to do is warm you up to Occam's razor. Okay, so this is the Occam strategy razor. And what we just learned from McKinsey's definition is that strategy is a mindset. So this is a slide that attempts to take that mindset that good strategists employ and put it into a page so that you can start to think about, am I thinking this way? Like, how do I train these mental muscles? And so the Occam strategy razor is built upon the idea that the simplest path forward is usually the most advantageous, right? You've seen this guy before, Occam. He's an old guy that knows a bunch of stuff, and we're going to use his great thinking here. So hopefully you can remember this really easy. The Occam strategy razor. Almost everything about strategy in one place. Pretty ambitious, right? But here are the 5 parts. I'm just gonna read them off here. So open up. You're being very expansive, casting a wide net, compressing, coordinating across, activating, and then a feedback loop. So here's what I've been promising you, all of it on one page, and orienting you to the slide here. You can see on the top, you've got OCCAM, right? On the left side, you have the behaviors, traits, and tools that go across Occam. And then underneath, you have some of those strategic, those high-level, fundamental strategic questions that you're asking at each stage of Occam. Okay, so let's go through this together. Starting with opening up. The behaviors you're going to want to exhibit are asking questions, being in a mode of ideation. You're going to be looking to gather data and trends and spot patterns. This is really important in the traits. Curiosity to learn is critical here as you open up your mind, cast that wide net. You're going to try to be visionary. You're going to challenge the status quo. And you've got to bring a very optimistic, positive mindset to this stage. The next stage, compress. And so what you're asking here is, what are the critical success factors? You've already opened things up. Now you need to start narrowing down. You're analyzing more deeply the data and the resources, and you're trying to seek that competitive advantage, right? You're managing trade-offs, you're simplifying, and you're setting goals. And the ability to focus is the most important trait here. And Porter said it really well, actually. This is another one of his definitions of strategy. Strategy is choices. And strategy is choosing what not to do. Here you need to start choosing what not to do and be able to focus. In order to do that, you're going to have to use not only data, but you'll need to have some intuition. In fact, combining data plus intuition together is probably what creates the best balance and the most powerfully performing strategic mind that you can have. So you're going to need a lot of courage. Be bold. Don't be afraid. Have confidence. Be able to be direct with your assertions on here's what we need to do, while also somehow having that pendulum swing towards learning from others and being able to pivot as needed. So that's a careful balance there too. Employing courage. Some tools you can use, these are all just recommendations. SWOT, BCG growth matrix, strategy canvas. You can find a strategy canvas over at strategykiln.com. And some of these other things in a positioning statement. In many ways, this, for larger, complex organizations, this can be the most challenging pillar because it can almost be like a landmine, and you really need to figure out how to do your best here to maximize your strategy. So one of the high-level questions you're asking here in the coordination stage is, what are the synergies? You need to weave into your corporate strategy, right? Your business has these strategic pillars up here that it needs to get done. How does what you're trying to do at the business or marketing level bolt onto and reinforce what that corporate strategy is? This is incredibly important. You want to align on key objectives. You want to find those multiplier effects. So in other words, it's like, okay, maybe I'm a smaller business unit, right? But I can bolt onto this other billion-dollar business unit that has a lot more scale by integrating into a relevant message from a seasonal standpoint. There are a lot of ways to do this, but find those multiplier effects across the organization that reinforce each other and create that consumer awareness, the consumer value, the synergies, the economies of scale that you're looking for that give you an edge over the competition. Some of the traits you're going to need to have here is being a multi-dimensional thinker. So you went from focusing, now you needed to focus down, now you have to think very broadly about how to get things done. You'll need to be flexible. You have to have this ability to anticipate what could happen. So you're working with all these disparate groups in order to figure out like, hey, how is working with you going to mitigate risk? How is working with you going to unlock some avenue of growth that maybe I hadn't seen before? A lot of it is just plain old relationship building. So hopefully you can be someone who people like and will listen to you. Of course, you're going to have to lead by influence as opposed to authority at most big organizations. If you're like me, because I'm not the CEO, you're going to be developing business cases, writing up project charters, going through stage gates potentially, using the McKinsey 7. A lot of these different tools are going to be at your disposal. So activating. This is where you need to just stop thinking and stop in many ways pontificating and just sharing out the information and start doing, right? So this is where you harness the resources to get things done. Execution is everything, right? So strategy is only good as the execution. In many ways, execution is even more important. So you're going to have to develop a launch plan. I would say that at this stage, the number one trait you need to have, in addition to an eye for detail while managing the big picture, is just being able to maintain that motivation and that hunger to win, because you've got to bring that boulder up over the mountain to get things over to the other side, and you can't lose momentum. So stay strong during the activation period. Something to mention here as far as activation, like, and this comes up a lot in my world, where it's like, Sometimes you want to make a big bang, right? You're going to launch, you're going to go big. This is a home run. We need it to be a home run. But in other cases, it's like, look, there's so much we need to learn and there's so much data we don't have. We're going to do a test approach, and it's going to be a crawl, walk, run. And that means you start small, you learn, and you begin to scale. And that brings us to the next portion here too. So the last part of Occam is the M, and this is to measure, okay? And you're asking the question of like, how can we improve here? Like, have we been successful? But as importantly, how can we improve? Because strategy is an iterative process, right? Strategies evolve over decades. They also evolve over sometimes days and weeks if they need to be changed. So you're going to measure what you've done as you review your launch. You're going to apply those learnings into that feedback loop, and you're going to optimize. And this is where you're really optimizing that feedback loop. So the traits you need to employ here, you've got to be results driven, right? Hopefully you've developed a strong measurement plan, and you're going to be patient, but also take initiative to go out and make sure that you can measure results and improve the whole process. You need to be proactive. You can't just sit back and wait for the results to roll in. You're going to need to make sure that you're taking advantage of that iterative process and making things better as you go along. Some of the tools here that you're going to need is a KPI dashboard. Perhaps one of the most important tools that you'll need when you employ Occam is a good KPI dashboard. Maybe you're looking at market share, maybe you're looking for sales growth, awareness drivers, brand equity. You need to have a dashboard to be able to trace how you're doing. Another thing that you should be doing is, if you're employing a marketing strategy, is testing your creative. This is critically important because I don't know how many times people will put creative out there that feels so right. You know, it's got messages that you've tested that resonate with the customer. It's got the right branding. You mention the brand a bunch of times. It riffs off something that's worked in the past. All of that stuff can fall down because you need to do creative testing in the moment. Consumers change so much. Make sure that you test your creative so you know that it's worth putting all of that time and effort and money behind it. Just a quick reminder, you can download the Occam Strategy Framework over at strategykiln.com. I've also got a cool contradictions of strategy slide there that you can take a look at, kind of like a bonus for you. All right, so what have we learned? We learned that strategy is more about thinking than it is about frameworks and memorizing things. But I do want to be able to impart a definition for you to kind of crystallize some of what we've talked about here. I think this is a good definition because I feel like it accomplishes like a broad range of applications, and it guides your thinking more than it guides here's what you need to go do. So here's the strategy kiln definition. What are the critical factors of the situation? And how do I choose and connect the right actions in order to win? You can see I've underlined some things there, right? What are the critical factors? So in Occam, you opened up and then you compressed. That's where you found those critical factors. And that's where you chose what to pursue. And then in the coordination portion, you connected those things together, right? And then you enacted a plan in order to win. So what's the profile of the strategic thinker? Here are some things to take away. The strategic thinker has an immense curiosity to learn with a growth mindset. Strategic thinkers take the complex and they boil it down and make it really simple. Put it into clear language that's easy to share so people can get on board. The strategic thinker understands that strategy is not linear. It's a multi-dimensional and holistic process and way of thinking. The strongest strategic thinkers are able to anticipate outcomes, think of them in terms of risks, envision shifts and trends, and change things accordingly. Here's the asterisk to everything, right? Like, you can have the best strategy, the best activation plan, but if it's not aligned with what your boss or your corporate strategy is looking to accomplish, then all bets are off. So make sure that what you're looking to achieve is sold into your boss and is something that he or she really cares about, and you can co-create things together. Otherwise, you can have a really difficult time getting things off the ground. And every good strategist knows that strategy is useless without a plan that's followed by massive, massive action. You've got to maintain that motivation, that passion to win throughout the whole process. Okay, so here's what I'm going to end on: an enduring understanding. So my wife's a school teacher, and she ends her classes with an enduring understanding so that the students can latch onto something really concrete and remember it for years to come. So that's what I'm hoping for here. So the enduring understanding that we can take away together today is that strategy is a mindset. It's built by asking the right questions. Okay, so to wrap things up, I had a really good time. Hopefully this helps shed some light on shadowy, darker areas of what strategy really is. I'm very much open to getting some feedback from everybody. So if you like this video, comment. If you have some challenges, some questions, please comment as well. The goal is to get better together. I also have a bonus for you. So if you go to strategykiln.com, you can get the Occam Strategy Razor for free to download. And there'll also be some other stuff for you there, including the contradictions of strategy that often trip people up. It's one of those, like, strategy is focused, but it's also multi-dimensional. To keep training your mind on what those dualities are, because strategy has so many contours and dualities are very pervasive. These contradictions will help you kind of rationalize what's going on there. So I hope you subscribe to my channel, check out strategykiln.com, and I'll see you soon.